In The Suspended Step of the Stork with Mastroianni and Jean Moreau, Angelopoulos looks at geographical borders in terms of dividing lines and expresses concern for the fate of the Balkans. The film focuses on a reporter near the Greece-Turkey border who meets a refugee resembling a former politician who has left his wife years ago.
Mi piace la sua voglia e il suo in fin di conti odio per i confini. I suoi odio per i confini. In tutti i suoi film arriviamo sempre al confine, a un confine da un paese all'altro, un confine da una cosa all'altra, c'è sempre questa cosa qui. E lui odia perché non capisce perché l'umanità non ha queste restrizioni, questi legami, no? Ma in più, la cosa che mi piace di più è quali sono i confini fra la parola e l'immagine dentro di lui, perché lui ha un amore sviscerato, potente per la parola e anche per l'immagine. Quindi nei suoi film c'è sempre un rispetto eccezionale, perché lui non vuole mettere in ombra la parola, ma non vuole che la parola sia così luminosa da battere l'immagine. Ora in questo confine, questo mi guardo sempre, questo mi attira, perché io sono un poeta e lui è soprattutto un poeta.
Although Angelopoulos is an internationally acclaimed director with award-winning work, some of his critics in Greece have attacked him for exposing the darker side of the Greek experience. With his film, The Suspended Step of the Stork, he and his crew were excommunicated from the Greek Orthodox Church for promoting indecency.
For anyone who would say that his films are depressing, I would say, wait, take a look at a scene like The Wedding. Let's review what happens. In northern Greece, on the border between Greece and Albania, there is a river, and we see a wedding take place with the bride on one side, the groom on the other side of the river. They grew up in a village that became split. It's never explained how. So they're in separate countries, but they've agreed through communications to get married, even though they'll never live together. And the wedding takes place. And no one can watch that scene without being amazed, like, wow, what is going on? Priest arriving by bicycle, and ceremony, the priest blessing across the river, across the boundary, and a wedding has taken place. And then everyone leaves. Now, when you sit down and analyze it and say, well, that's crazy, why would anybody do that? And then the second thought is, as one of my American students said, that's pretty amazing because it shows how strong people can be when they have a desire to do something. Even if politics and nationalities and everything seems to be against them. Isn't that a wonderful example of human hope, even though it seems hopeless? And I go along with that. Theo explained where that scene came from. He was once in Crete, and there was a little island near Crete, just off the coast, that years ago had a bad winter, and somebody died on this island that only had about 50 people, and they couldn't get the priest over to the island. So they had the priest stand on a cliff on the mainland, and they had the burial going on the island, and the priest was blessing across the water to finish the funeral. So, hey, you know, don't let politics or even nature interrupt a ceremony that wants to be, should be conducted.
The film has a memorable parting shot of yellow-jacketed telephone repair workers climbing poles that reach beyond the horizon.
He was talking with some of my students last night about that. I loved what he said. He said, you never know where an idea, a story, a scene's going to come from. And he gave the example, if you'll remember, the end of Suspended Step of the Stork has all of the men in yellow raincoats going up telephone poles at the border, and our main character walking down by the river. He said, I really was somewhere near the border, and I saw a pole, and I saw a man going up the pole. And suddenly, I said, I've got it. That's the ending of the story. Now I'll find the rest of the story. So he says he really works that way. Everyone, I'm a screenwriter too, and I think each person has a different approach. But Angelopoulos says he writes on cigarette packages and on napkins and on tabletops whenever he gets an idea. And so I think he begins with things that hit him unexpectedly. And he ended by saying, you know, I could go by that scene another day and it wouldn't mean anything to me. But there's something about me at that moment, at that place, that went chink. And from that, things opened up inside me and I began to find my story.
Ποτέ είχα τα γενέθλιά μου και είχαν έρθει μαζευτεί όλοι. Μέσα στο χώρο που είμαστε, στο σαλόνι, υπάρχει ένα μαρμάριο τραπεζάκι και είχε διάφορα πράγματα πάνω. Εκεί κάθομαι και γράφω. Μια μέρα που δεν είχα χαρτί και έπρεπε να γράψω οπωσδήποτε κάτι, μια σκηνή, την έγραψα πάνω στο μαρμαράκι. Μαζευτήκαν όλοι και το κοιτάζανε σαν κάτι περίεργο. Για μένα δεν είναι περίεργο. Γράφω οπουδήποτε. Μπορώ να γράψω και στον τοίχο, όταν θέλω να γράψω. Σηκώνομαι τη νύχτα και γράφω. Τα πράγματα που νομίζω γεννιόνται την ώρα λίγο πριν ξημερώσει. Κοιμάμαι υποτίθεται, αλλά δεν κοιμάμαι. Και με την έννοια όμως, έχω κοιμηθεί με την έννοια μιας σκηνής που δεν έχω βρει το κλειδί της. Και εκείνη την ώρα γεννιόνται πράγματα. Διάλογοι, εικόνες, παράξενες. Πρέπει να τις καταγράψω. Ενώ δεν θυμάμαι τα όνειρά μου, αυτά τα περίεργα όνειρα που είναι ανάμεσα μεταξύ ονείρου και ξύπνιου, τα θυμάμαι απολύτως. Και τα γράφω. Όμως έχει μια επίγουσα μορφή αυτό το γράψιμο. Δηλαδή, αν δεν το κάνω μέσα στην πρώτη μισή ώρα, χάνω λεπτομέρειες, χάνω ίχνη, χάνω εικόνες. Γράφω λοιπόν οπουδήποτε βρεθώ. Σκρώνω το κρεβάτι και ό,τι βρω, όπου βρω, γράφω.
In 1995, Ulysses Gaze wins the Grand Prix at Cannes. It is the first time Angelopoulos directs an American film star, Harvey Keitel. Of epic scope, the film is shot throughout the Balkans, tracking the journey of character A in trying to reconnect with his past. Harvey Keitel talks about Angelopoulos as a friend and master director.
This was a very spiritual journey for all of us involved. We traveled the Balkans, as you know. We were in Vukovar, Mostar. I was in Sarajevo with Vanessa Redgrave before the beginning of the film. Theo, myself, and two other people attempted to arrive in Sarajevo, but just before we were to board the plane before us was fired upon, so they canceled the flights. That was to continue our filming. So we never got to Sarajevo ourselves. Theo's scope of humanity is huge. To me, it's Homeric in its spirit, in its depth, in its profundity, in its eating.
In Ulysses Gaze, there he is using Thanasis Vengos, probably the most popular comedian in Greece, but in a serious role as a taxi driver driving in Albania for that scene with Harvey Keitel. And the lines that he's speaking, "We Greeks are a dying nation, better to die quickly," those are direct lines from George Seferis's poems. So here you've got the funniest man in Greece quoting a Nobel poet standing in the snow in Albania and throwing a biscuit to the universe. Everybody who sees that, there's a laugh that goes with that. So call it Angelopoulos' ironic humor, but he's making you contemplate how a comedian can play a serious role. So Angelopoulos is always pushing things into something else, to push Vengos into a serious role, which is memorable. I was very touched by the way Vengos was used and performed in that.
At the end of the 20th century, in 1998, Eternity in a Day is awarded the Golden Palm in Cannes.
There are certain filmmakers who make films to show at festivals. I know a lot of them. I'm not going to mention any of them, but it's like sort of breaks my heart because it's kind of cultural prostitution. But Theo has made so many films. I mean, it's like he's probably the filmmaker who had most films played in competition in Cannes.
Eternity in a Day is the story of a terminally ill writer who says his goodbyes and plans to go into the hospital the next day to die. On the way, he helps an Albanian orphan living on the streets. 3 words he hears from the boy express the nostalgic feeling of the film. The word for the heart of a flower, the word for feeling foreign everywhere, and the word for very late at night. A film that has touched the heart of a wide audience.
I think Eternity in a Day was actually, in a strange way, ended in an optimistic place. You know, I mean, it's a film. You know, it's a film about a man who's dying, but by the end of it, you don't feel hopeless and bleak. You know, there's this strange optimism in it. It's hard to describe. I mean, it's not in the incidentals of the film.
Eternity in a Day is an example of a film, I think, that reached a larger audience than some of his earlier films.
Dans l'unanimité to l'éternité et un jour de Theo Angelopoulos.
He is now at the pinnacle of Greece's film community.